The 9th of July, Rabbi Levitt, Ezra.
And they bring here a long note, actually, based upon a Mishnah Brura and a Gemara, that the Talmud derives from here that before davening, a traveler that's come in from a journey, he should rest for 3 days after a completion of his journey, so that he may recover from his fatigue, and only then be able to immerse himself in prayer with absolute concentration. So that's what it says in the Gemara. So they didn't daven for 3 days. So already the Shulchan Aruch paskins that that was in the time of the Talmud, because their davening involved concentration. And but after that, we don't have such concentration, and at least not like that. And so therefore, this 3-day period of not davening, it doesn't apply to us today. But that's the history. But the Mishnah Brura does say that there is a halacha that comes out from this, that a person, when he comes to shul to daven, really he should prepare himself by putting aside thoughts and sentiments that might interfere with proper concentration. In other words, every time that you come to daven Shachris, Mariv, Mincha, it's more nogea by Mincha and Mariv, because you go right into davening right away. Shachris, you have some time to warm up a little bit with brachas and korbanos and psukkah de zimra. But the other tefillas, you're going to be davening Shema and Shmon Esrei right away. So before you do that, you should get to shul a little bit early and just sit there and relax your mind. Let it stop racing and let it start focusing on the fact that we're now going to speak to Hashem. We're now going to daven. We're going to try to have some type of kavanah when we say the words. So there was 3 days, that was before their trip. And now, after the trip, it also says that they remained there for 3 days. Doesn't say that they, right? But it could be that those 3 days are because of the 3 days that we said before the trip. Oh, because we're going to see what they're going to do right now in Pasuk Lamed Gimel. They're going to need to have a very strong concentration, not in tefillah, but in we'll see, in the weighing of the silver and everything. Okay, so we're going to Pasuk Lamed Gimel, and we call upon Roy.
Lamed Gimel, I've got 25. Lamed Dalet, Aleph, Lamed Gimel. Uvayom Haravi Nishkal HaKesef V'Hazahar V'Hakalim V'Beis Eloheinu Al Yod Marei Mos Ben Arion Hakahel ואמו אלעזר בן פנחס, ואמהם יוזבד בן ישוע ונדיה בן בנינו, הלוויים במשפחה הלוויים. All right. Lamed base, and we came to Jerusalem, say 3 days. Lamed David, I mean, base Kimmel, David, on the 4th day, what do I say? On the 4th day, the silver, the gold, the vessels were weighed in the house of God to the hand of Meremoth, the son of Uriah the priest, and with him Eleazar, the son of Pinchas, and with them Yosabad, the son of Yeshua, and Nadiah, the son of Binui of the Levites. And everything was counted, weighed, the entire weight was written in that time. I'm not too sure what I've read, but if I've read the right things. Anyway.
Okay, so the silver and the gold and the vessels were weighed. Weighed over. What does it mean then weighed over?
Weighed over at the temple. They took them over to the temple and they weighed them there.
Why can't you just say they were weighed at the temple?
I guess to communicate that they had to be moved.
The valuables were accounted for by weight and then handed over to Meremoth. Okay. With a count and with a weight for everything. They were all delivered by number and by weight. The number and the weight of all the valuables now delivered by the guardians to Meremoth, and his companions matched their number and weight when they were received from Ezra. Wow.
So there was a handing over process.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Wow. They got it matched the number and the weight when they were received from Ezra. That's amazing. Okay. And it was duly recorded, the weights of all the contributions. For the Beis Hamikdash. Okay. Okay, Pasuk Lamed Hey. We go to Lu.
Aren't we on Lamed Daled?
Yeah, I think we're on Daled, Rabbi.
Oh, okay.
Mishkal ha-mishkal lakol vayikasev kol ha-mishkal ba'es hahi. With a count and with a weight for everything, and all the weight was recorded at that time. The commentary says, with a count and with a weight of everything, they were all delivered by number and by weight, i.e., the number and the weight of all the valuables now delivered by the guardians to Meremoth and his companions matched the number and weight when they were received from Ezra, according to Rashi. And all the weight was recorded. The weight of all the valuables, and certainly their number, was recorded, according to Malbim.
Okay. Okay, good. Mayor Ahmed Hay, please.
Okay. I wonder if Math was a CPA.
He was
Okay. A
he was more than
CPA.
that. He was a gizbar.
Ah,
He was the I think he was he must have been the custodian of the treasure house of the Beis Hamikdash, the Otzer Beis Hamikdash.
okay.
That's where we said all these things came from. We're going to.
Okay. So Lamed Hey, Habaim Mechashvi B'nei Hagola Hikrivu Olot Lokei Yisrael Parim Shneim Asar Al Kol Yisrael Elim Tish'im V'shisha Kvasim Shiv'im V'shiv'a Tzipirei Chatat Shneim Asar Hakol Olah LaHashem. Okay, so the people of the exile returning from the captivity brought as burnt offerings to the God of Israel 12 bulls for all the tribes of Israel, 96 rams, 77 sheep, 12 goats as sin offerings brought up on the altar in their entirety as burnt offerings to Hashem. Wow. Must have been a big altar there to burn everything up. Okay, anyway, let's go to the comments about Imech Hashvi B'nai Yisrael. The people of the exile returning from captivity. This returns to those who now return with Ezra, and that's Rashi. Kol Olah, in their entirety, is burnt offerings. The particular offerings listed here do not conform with the Torah laws governing the offerings and cannot ordinarily have been brought at the temple. They were now offered because Ezra and his colleagues issued a Hora'at Sha'ah, temporary ruling, the temporary suspension of the law that may be decreed by the highest rabbinical authorities in order to meet overriding monetary needs.
Momentary.
Momentary, thank you. Overriding momentary needs. Instructing that these particular offerings be brought. That's Rashi, I guess, from Horayos and Tamura. Okay, this verse states that 12 bulls were brought for all of Israel, 96 rams, 76 sheep, and 12 goats as sin offerings. In addition, all are described at the close of the sentence as burnt offerings, Olah, although the 12 goats are described previously in the verse as sin offerings, chatat. The Talmud in Tamura and Harayot examines each of these specifications and point out in some ways these offerings conform with the ordinary sacrificial regulations, and in other ways they do not. The 12 bulls for all of Israel and the 12 goats as sin offerings were brought to atone for the idol worship practiced by the Jewish people during the times of King Zedekiah, immediately preceding the fall of the first temple. The bulls and goats correspond to the biblically prescribed offerings to be brought when the entire congregation has sinned by committing idol worship. One bull as a burnt offering and one goat as a sin offering. But why were 12 bulls and goats brought when only one of each is prescribed by the Torah? According to some Talmudic opinions, the 12 bulls and goats were offered for the 12 tribes of Israel who shared the guilt for the idol worship. Some members of all the tribes remained in the land of Israel to the very end of the first temple. Another opinion in the Talmud is that the idolatry was repeated 12 times, necessitating 12 bulls and 12 goats. The Talmud also explains why all the offerings are called burnt offerings at the end of the verse. Actually, the 12 goats were not burnt offerings, but sin offerings. However, they differed from the ordinary sin offering and resembled the burnt offering in the following way. Ordinary sin offerings are partly consumed on the altar and partly eaten by the Kohanim. But the burnt offerings are completely consumed and not eaten at all. The sin offering to be brought when the community has committed idolatry is exceptional in that it too is totally consumed, like the burnt offering. Thus, the 12 sin offering goats are called burnt offerings, which they resembled. Since they were brought as atonement for the community-wide idol worship, they were totally consumed like the burnt offering. In the ways just described, the offerings brought when Ezra and his group reached Jerusalem conformed to the prescribed rules for offerings. However, Ezra's offerings differed from the ordinary sacrificial regulations in two ways. One, Ezra's offerings were brought for mazed, deliberate sin of idol worship. Ordinarily, offerings were brought only when the transgressors have, through negligence, sinned b'shogeg, unintentionally. And two, the offerings included 96 rams and 77 sheep. Nowhere in the Torah's laws of offerings is this number of rams and sheep prescribed. Therefore, the Talmud concludes the offerings brought when Ezra and his companions reached Jerusalem were prescribed by Hora'at Sha'ah, the rabbi's temporary ruling used to alter normal procedures in extraordinary times. Malbim adds that the prophets of the day were commanded by divine revelation to issue this temporary ruling, instructing that these offerings be brought.
Okay.
I've got here that these offerings were brought on behalf of the sinners, but the sinners had already died. So they just
Oh. Mm-hmm. Okay. Uh-huh. Right. Right. The general rule is that a sin offering is not brought for the person that who needs to have it brought to atone for the sin that he did, the shogeg, if he's no longer alive. Also, these would seem to be some of the reasons why they needed to have the Horath Shah to allow the bringing of these korbanos. there doesn't seem to be that there's anything particularly invalidated by the goof of the korban itself. The goof of the korban was fine. It was not a balmum. There was nothing wrong with it at all. But the circumstances that they're bringing the korbanos, that was not 100% according to all the rules and the regulations of the halacha. So we mentioned two over here that Mayor read, and Roy is bringing another reason as well. You have that in your note, Roy?
Yeah, there's another thing is that the sacrifice is a temporary ruling.
Yeah, that's what Harashah is. So Ezra, being that he was a great sage and a scholar, he would be qualified together with his Bezdin to issue a temporary ruling, what's called a Harashah, that for right now, just for this particular time, it would be permissible to bring these korbanos under these circumstances.
I believe that Rollbug explains the verse to mean that all but the sin offerings were burnt offerings. Yeah. Anyway, is it possible to sort of meld all the opinions into one opinion?
What do you mean?
Sometimes you have separate opinions, but they could be put together as one opinion. They could be all part of one opinion.
Well, if you're referring to the issue at hand over here about the propriety of bringing these korbanos, we see that it looks like the different commentators brought different reasons why that it wasn't 100% halachically valid to bring the korbanos, but nevertheless they were.
Mm-hmm.
So
you can't really sort of say, oh, I accept this person's opinion and all the others are not right. They must have something to them.
Yeah. Right. I mean, we don't know exactly why Ezra what the issue was that was presented to Ezra and his Bezdin. Why they would not. We're just the Meforshim were just surmising that this would be a reasonable way to explain what the issues were that they were grappling with.
Okay.
Okay. So pasuk Lamed Vav. The Lamed Vav Nick pasuk. We have time for that? Oh, we don't have time. Okay. Lamed Vav will be tomorrow. That'll be the last pasuk of this parak. Then we'll get to pasuk Tes.
Wow.
Parak Tes.
All right.
Okay. A great day to Mayor.
Okay, thank you. And everyone else should have a good day too.
Amen.
Hey.
All right. Be well. Okay.
All right, see you in a few minutes.
Okay.